Howdy folks, it's still nice and hot here, but at least a little bit of a sea breeze has started to come in. They say by tonight it will be 19 degrees, so this heat wave should subside in the next day for our road trip. Anyway, in today's video I want to talk more to the business people, or the people that are thinking of opening up businesses in Canada, So there's a few things I wanted to run past you, basically on the taxes and how the accounting system works. So the first thing is, Canada, like South Africa, works on an accrual-based accounting. Now, accrual-based accounting means if I issue an invoice, then the government assumes that I've received the money or that I've earned the money, even if I have not received it. So in other words, if I issue an invoice for $1,000 and I need to charge sales tax on it, or GST of 5%, if I issue the invoice and I charge the 5%, the government says I have to pay that 5% over to them at my next GST run, whether I've received the money or not, because the money has become due, it's part of it, I have to pay it. The same with income tax. If I have invoiced $1 million, but I haven't been paid, at the end of my income tax year, the government looks at what I have invoiced and they say, right, you owe us so much money, your tax portion. That's a little different than in the US. In the US it works on cash-based accounting. So there it's what money comes in, what money goes out. So if I invoice $1 billion and I haven't been paid, it doesn't matter, because I don't have to pay tax on it because I haven't received the money. So in the US it works on the money that I've received, which makes for a much easier accounting system. So if you invoice a client and he's not he decides he doesn't want the product anymore, you don't have to credit the invoice and do all kinds of crap. You just delete the invoice because it doesn't matter. Whereas in Canada and South Africa, you will have to credit the invoice, because when you issued the invoice there was a tax portion that became due, a sales tax portion that became due, and when you credit the invoice you reverse that sales tax portion. If you don't credit the invoice, you might end up still having to pay that sales tax portion, which is obviously not great. So that's the accrual and the cash-based system. Accrual is a little bit more complex and a little harder to run, so you also need to make sure when you run an accrual system that if somebody doesn't pay you, that you either write it off as bad debt or you do something with it before your tax period closes, because otherwise you're going to be due to pay the tax on that money even though you haven't received the cash. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, how does it work with sales tax? In Canada we've got not as complex as the US, but not as easy as South Africa. South Africa, it's really simple. You got VAT. What's it now? 14%, 15%, whatever it is. You got VAT. It's the same everywhere. Yeah, you've got GST, which is the federal sales tax, and that's 5%. Now that works in some provinces, but not all provinces. And then in Vancouver in British Columbia we have PST, which is the provincial sales tax, which is 7%. In Alberta there's no provincial sales tax. In Quebec there's 14.75% HST, which is a combination of provincial and federal sales tax. So it's a little bit confusing across the board. Oh, we've got the dogs barking downstairs. Anyway, so it is a little confusing across the board, and that's what you need to be very careful when you start your business here. Make sure you speak to an accountant and make sure that you get your taxes sorted out the right way, because it's also not based on where your company is situated, but where you are doing business. So even if I'm even if I'm here in Vancouver in British Columbia, if I'm invoicing people in Quebec, then I have to charge the Quebec HST. And if I'm invoicing people in Alberta, then I only have to charge the 5% GST. So there's quite a few little rules and regulations that you need to keep in mind. An important other thing is then, when do you have to register for this GST? Now, you don't necessarily have to register when you start a business, not immediately. It is only as soon as you go over a $30,000 revenue threshold. So as soon as you hit $30,000 in that month, you need to register for the sales tax so that you can so that the government can start taking their portion. So that's GST, that's sales tax. The GST works very much the same like VAT in South Africa, or the sales tax here. It works also on the basis that it's value-added tax works in this. Yeah, it's the same. Value-added tax and GST, although it says goods and services tax is what it's called here. But basically what happens is, if I buy something for 100 Rand, say I buy a chair for $100, and I have to pay the 5% GST, I then buy the chair, in other words, for $105. If I sell that same chair for $200, I need to charge $10 GST, which is 5% of $200. But I don't have to pay the full $10 over to the tax authority. I only have to pay $5 over to the tax authority, because I get to deduct the $5 that I have paid when I bought the product. So in other words, what you are due to pay to the tax authority is all the GST that you charged minus all the GST that you paid. Very much the same as that. Anyway, guys, this is for the entrepreneurs out there that are thinking of starting businesses. I know a lot of this is, sounds simple, but it's always a good idea to talk to your accountant before you start invoicing and start doing business here, because otherwise you might just get yourself in trouble. All right, have a good one. Cheers.